Welcome back, Giants fans. So a few things before we get into this video, and by the title, of course, we're going to talk about Jason Garrett and why I think he has to go. This video is long overdue, but I try to be rational. I wanted to give him a chance. Honestly, if the Giants fired him last offseason, I would have been fine with it, but of course they brought him back, and it has not gone well so far. A little better, but still terrible. So anyway, some of the news: Blake Martinez, torn ACL, out for the year. Don't know if this will be the last time he's played in a Giants uniform. There's a pretty nice cap saving the Giants can have next year if they don't bring him back, so we'll see. Hopefully Blake Martinez has a speedy recovery. The Giants brought in Isaiah Wilson. He was a right tackle from Georgia, was taken at the end of the first round in 2020's draft, same one as Andrew Thomas. He actually played on the opposite side of the offensive line as Andrew Thomas, and he went to the Titans, and things did not go well whatsoever. Got in a lot of off-field trouble, I believe, and then he was cut. I think he played 3 snaps for the Titans and was cut as a former first-round pick. It's honestly worse than the DeAndre Baker situation. I think he went to Miami, didn't work out there, and may have went to a couple other teams for workouts, but the Giants brought him in on the practice squad, I believe, today. So we'll see how that goes. It is a former first-round pick. I didn't view him as a first-round pick. I thought he was more of a second-round, third-round type project, but hey, maybe it'll work, and maybe the Giants have something here at right tackle one day. We'll see. And the last bit of news here is the Giants, of course, are 0-3. And based on a tweet from Mike Clay last night, I'm sure some of you saw it, the Giants have the hardest remaining schedule in the NFL. So while I do hope that things get better, I can't sit here and tell you guys it's going to get better because they have a very tough schedule coming up, and I feel like the Giants may realistically be 2-8 at some point. I feel like 2-8 may be our ceiling because outside of the Panthers and outside of the Raiders, I don't know who we're beating, and I don't know if we're going to beat those guys either. So, I don't know. Could be a rough first 10 games or so. Could be a rough season overall, but there are some more winnable games back in December when the season's wrapping up. So, we'll see. But yeah, not a good time to be a Giants fan, and I feel bad for Martinez. Of course, Shepard got an injury. He might be out for a little bit. We'll see about Darius Slayton as well. Hopefully, we see Kadarius Toney more, but we'll see how that one goes. Anyway, let's get into the video. I have a bunch of stats here, some advanced stats as well. I'll try to explain all these. I personally don't get most of them myself, but I'll try to walk myself and you guys through it and talk about why I think Jason Garrett has to go. So anyway, hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get into it. So here's the first stat we'll go over here. Daniel Jones' attempts of 20-plus yards in 2019. That, of course, was with Pat Shurmur, and Daniel Jones played in 12 games. So Daniel Jones had 54 passing attempts of 20-plus air yards in 2019. 54. Now, in 2020 and so far in 3 games of 2021, and this is in 17 games as compared to 12 with Shurmur, he has 50 attempts of 20-plus yards. So he had 54 in 12 games with Shurmur and 50 in 17 games with Jason Garrett. So right there, Pat Shurmur was taking advantage of Daniel Jones' ability to throw the ball deep. Jason Garrett's not. So more attempts with Shurmur in less games. It's not what you want to see. Now, Daniel Jones in 2021 so far has 7 passing attempts of 20-plus yards. So that's not very many. Here's a list of some quarterbacks that have more passing attempts of 20-plus yards than Daniel Jones so far through this 2021 season. Taylor Heinicke, a guy who hasn't even played every quarter because I think Ryan Fitzpatrick played the first 1 or 2 in week 1. Carson Wentz, who has not looked that great in Indy so far. He's been the check down king so far in Indy. Jared Goff and Ben Roethlisberger, who is a shell of his former self. If you've watched the Steelers lately, you'll see it. So, yeah, that's not a good list to be behind in terms of passing the ball deep, and I think it's unacceptable personally. Now, for reference, Daniel Jones had a 46 completion percentage and a 95 PFF grade on passes of 20-plus yards last year. So why is Jason Garrett not taking advantage of it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a person that believes Daniel Jones is the most talented quarterback in the world, but Daniel Jones has shown you he can do some things at a high level, like run fast and throw the ball deep, and like they're not even taking advantage of one of those things, even running the ball. They didn't do a single read option on Sunday, I believe. It's pretty embarrassing, honestly. So part of the problem is Daniel Jones is too conservative. He plays not to turn the ball over. It's kind of like Joe Judge. He plays not to lose. Well, Daniel Jones is playing not to turn the ball over. And I don't blame Daniel Jones. He's doing what the coaches are telling him to do. That's what I think, at least. The Giants' offense has 0 room for error. If there's a penalty, the drive's pretty much done. If there's a botched snap like we saw on Sunday where the ball went right through Daniel Jones's hands on a shotgun formation, the drive is done. Drops by a receiver, drive is done. Like, the Giants have no room for error. There's no room for error when you have a lack of explosive plays like this Giants team has. And by the way, the Giants offense has been 31st in the NFL out of 32 teams in explosive plays since 2020 has started, which is when Jason Garrett took over as the OC. So the Giants offense, unless they are absolutely perfect every single drive, no penalties, no discipline errors, no beating themselves, this offense is just not sustainable. The explosive plays are such a big part of the NFL. That's why I've said in the past, I'm fine with Daniel Jones throwing a few more interceptions as long as we get the big plays in return. I would much rather take the 2019 Giants offense than what the hell we're seeing right now. This is unsustainable offense, throwing curl routes and stick and nods and all this crap. It's just ridiculous. You have to be perfect. You can't afford a single mistake. And the Giants, if you've seen so far, are not a very well-coached team, and they make mistakes. So how is this offense sustainable? It's not. And I don't see it changing because unless Joe Judge somehow turns into a much better coach overnight, I don't know how that's changing this year. So Jason Garrett can make the decision or get fired and say, I have to be more aggressive, because why the hell not? So here's some other Giants offensive numbers since Jason Garrett's taken over as the offensive coordinator. This is from @Marcus_Mosher on Twitter. So the Giants are 32nd in yards to go on third down, so they're in the most third and long situations probably in the NFL, thanks to the penalties and the sacks and all that garbage. 31st in points per game. I think the Jets have us beat there. They're probably last, but 31st ain't much better, obviously. 30th in points per drive and 28th in yards per play. I'm surprised they're 28th. That seems kind of high, but the Giants do have a big problem with the red zone efficiency. They cannot put the ball in the end zone. We've seen that, so that's an issue as well. Now, so far, the Giants' points per game in 2021, yes, it's 3 games, I get it, very early in the season, but they're averaging 18.7 points per game on offense, and that's including playing the Atlanta Falcons, who suck on defense, didn't have their cornerback one. They scored 14 points offensively against them. And also, the game against the Broncos in Week 1, Daniel Jones ran in a touchdown when the Giants were down 27-7, I believe, as time expired. So we're giving them an extra 7 points or 6 points here. So even that's kind of like not even it shouldn't even be 17.5. So, or 18.7, sorry. So the Giants' point per game last year is 17.5. This year it's 18.7. Once again, 3 games, I know, but last year it was 17.5. I know that we expected to start slower offensively and not hit the ground running, but this is embarrassing. You spent how much money on Kenny Golladay? You spent how much money on Kyle Rudolph? You drafted Kadarius Toney in the first round. You get your generational running back in Saquon Barkley, and you're averaging how many points more? 1.2 points more than last year? I mean, it's a joke. I just don't understand what's going on here. It's just ridiculous. I know it's 3 games. Believe me, there's a lot of season left, but how am I supposed to sit here and believe Jason Garrett's going to get much better? Because he's been the Giants offensive coordinator now for how many games? I think it's been 15 plus 3, 18, because he missed a game last year with COVID. So 18 games of Jason Garrett as OC, and we've seen this nonsense, including some preseason games this year that did not look much better. So, you know, I would love to sit here and believe they're going to get much better, but I don't know. And they still have Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, who are pretty good pieces, and maybe Evan Engram if you want to include him. So, yeah, it's just not good. Now, I just mentioned how Garrett had a COVID last year, missed the game. There was a game where Colt McCoy was the Giants starting quarterback and Jason Garrett was not on the field because he had COVID. And the Giants, I think he was tight ends coach last year. I don't know what he does now, but Freddie Kitchens, who was once the Browns head coach, Freddie Kitchens was the play caller. This was still Jason Garrett's playbook. You can't change your entire playbook in 1 week, of course, but he was calling the plays, and this was in Freddie Kitchens' control. And here's what happened. So Colt McCoy, who is a lot less talented than Daniel Jones, as we know, Colt McCoy was 19 of 31, 221 yards. So now looking deeper in the numbers here, Colt McCoy's intended air yards per pass attempt. That one's pretty easy. It's just taking the amount of yards the ball is traveling and putting it per pass attempt. I can understand that one. That was 9.4, which is higher than the number Daniel Jones had last year. We'll get to that. And also, the completed air yards per completion was 7.2. That actually was worse than Daniel Jones, but still, I'll include that one as well. Now, Daniel Jones in 2021, his intended air yards per pass attempt is 8.7. So once again, going back to that one start, yes, small sample size, one start, but the one start Colt McCoy, who is a worse quarterback and has maybe half the arm strength that Daniel Jones has. His intended air yards per pass attempt, Colt McCoy, was 9.4. Daniel Jones this year through 3 games, 8.7. And Daniel Jones in all of 2020, 7.1. 7.1 intended air yards per pass attempt for Daniel Jones in 2020. That's embarrassing. That's like Drew Brees in the last 2 years of his career type levels. Like, he is just not throwing the ball down the field whatsoever. Now, Daniel Jones has completed air yards per completions 8.0. That's better than Colt McCoy in that one game, but still, the intended average air yards per attempt, that scares me. That's like the big number of showing how aggressive you are going downfield, and the Giants were not doing that when Daniel Jones was the quarterback last year. But when Freddie Kitchens took over that one game, we saw the intended air yards per attempt go from a number of 7.1 to 9.4 in one game. And that's against a good Browns defense, too, with your backup quarterback. So that's why I'm saying, are you going to be able to salvage the entire Giants offense just by promoting Freddie Kitchens? No, because this playbook sucks, and it is what it is. But Freddie Kitchens did show the ability to be more aggressive and want to go deep, even with Colt McCoy. That's why, you're not going to save the entire season by firing Garrett or demoting Garrett, but it's going to make things better. And as we sit here in year 3 of Daniel Jones, if Daniel Jones continues to play like this, we're not going to know who Daniel Jones is. I tweeted this yesterday. If Daniel Jones continues to play dink and dunk level football or style of football, how are we supposed to know who Daniel Jones is as a quarterback? We're not going to know, because right now he looks like Alex Smith with better legs. It's not. We're not going to know who Daniel Jones is as a quarterback if it's a 5-yard hitch and an 8-yard curl every single play. The man has to be unleashed and go downfield and actually show us his ability, because at this point, you're 0-3. What do you have to lose? There's nothing to lose here. Let Daniel Jones show who he is. If he stinks, he stinks. If he's great, then awesome, he's great. But how are we supposed to know who Daniel Jones is if all you're doing is this check down bullcrap? You're not going to know. So that's my problem here. So speaking of Freddie Kitchens, there is a stigma with him because of how things went down in Cleveland. Now, I will admit, he should not have been hired as a head coach. It was way too soon, way too overwhelming for him. They brought in Odell Beckham that offseason. There was a lot of high expectations. They failed. But here's the thing about Freddie Kitchens. He was tremendous in the second half of 2018. That's why he got the job in the first place. I believe Todd Haley was their offensive coordinator. He got fired. Of course, Hugh Jackson got fired as well, and Freddie Kitchens was promoted to offensive coordinator. And then he was really good, and Baker Mayfield was much better in the second half. That's why Freddie Kitchens got the job. Then 2019 started for the Browns as the head coach now, Freddie Kitchens. They were very, very bad the first 7 or 8 games, and it was awful. Baker Mayfield regressed, and everything looked bad. But the reason that the Browns offense struggled, and I had a video about this in the past. I made a video about maybe a year and a half ago-ish of why I thought Baker Mayfield was going to bounce back in 2020, which was correct. Good take by me. But anyway, the reason was because Freddie Kitchens wanted to go downfield too much. He was too aggressive, and the problem was in 2019, the Browns had an awful offensive line, which is tough to believe because the Browns now have a great offensive line. They fixed it in 1 year, basically. Look at that. But anyway, so Freddie Kitchens' whole philosophy in 2019 was wanting to push the ball downfield, but it was mainly his tackles that were so bad, they were getting beat so often that Baker Mayfield couldn't find a way to make this offense work. There was too much pressure. He was getting sacked too much. He was losing the ball too much and things like that. Too many interceptions. So Freddie Kitchens had the philosophy, if I want to be aggressive and push the ball downfield, he just did not have the offensive line for it. Now, will he have it here? Probably not. But the Giants' offensive line, at least so far, seems like a better pass-blocking offensive line than run-blocking offensive line. So they do have that going for them. Now, in weeks 9 through 17 in 2019, this was right before Freddie Kitchens got, fired, but in weeks 9 through 17, he kind of salvaged a bad season. So their offense got much better. He started to implement more of those RPOs for Baker Mayfield and get the ball out of his hands quickly, and Baker Mayfield got much better in the second half of 2019 as compared to the first half. So Freddie Kitchens learned, all right? At least he shows the ability of saying, hey, this is not working, I have to change. So Freddie Kitchens is not stubborn. He changed based on his personnel and the offensive line he had. So, once again, I don't think Freddie Kitchens is fixing all of our problem. He's not going to come in here and start averaging 30 points per game for our offense, as nice as that would be. But at the same time, he's better than Jason Garrett. He's giving us what we want, and that's being aggressive and pushing the ball downfield. If Daniel Jones gets sacked 5 times next game but wants to be aggressive, fine, whatever. If he gets intercepted twice, fine, whatever. But we're not going to figure out anything with this style of offense. I need to see it happen. So here's another stat. This one is not really about Garrett. It's more about the talent on this team, but it's more of a stat defending Daniel Jones. So far, the Giants receivers are averaging 3.5 yards after catch per completion. That's the lowest in the NFL. So Daniel Jones's receivers are not doing enough after the catch. That's what this stat is saying, and I believe it. There's not a guy on this roster right now, except for Kadarius Toney, who they don't use, of course, but Sterling Shepard's not known as a yards after catch type of guy. He had some yards after catch in that Denver game on the touchdown. Kenny Golladay, not really known for that himself. Who else? Kyle Rudolph, no way. Evan Engram hasn't been used much, of course. He was injured a lot. So, yeah, so far we have not seen guys just take the ball and get extra yards after they catch it. We have not seen that too much with the Giants offense, and Daniel Jones is kind of suffering from that as compared to other quarterbacks around the league. So Daniel Jones has been put in no position to succeed. Now, once again, I was not a huge Daniel Jones believer, but I do want to see what the kid's capable of, because if we go through year 3, let's say this year ends and Jason Garrett somehow lasts the entire year as the OC, and we still don't know who Daniel Jones is after 3 years, then, like, what are we doing here? We have to figure out this year who Daniel Jones is. There's a very good chance there's a new general manager after this year. There's a chance there's a new head coach. There's most definitely going to be a new offensive coordinator. We have to find out who Daniel Jones is. Are the Giants going to build and go forward with him, or is it time to get a stopgap or a bridge quarterback or find someone in the draft? We have to figure out who Daniel Jones is. This season for the Giants is unfortunately probably over. Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully they go 14-3. But when you're 0-3 in a division where Dallas looks like they do right now, I don't think the playoffs are very possible for this team. We saw the graphic on Monday Night Football. There's a 2% chance, I believe, the Giants make the playoffs. So my thing is, why not just go for it all? Like, I'm not saying go for every 4th down if you're Joe Judge, although I wish he did more of that. But if you're Daniel Jones, your average, intended air yards per attempt can't be in the 7 or 8s. Like push it up to 9 or 10. Like, let's throw the ball downfield more. Derek Carr has been a very good downfield passer, but Daniel Jones has graded out and has shown us he can be a good downfield passer. We saw the throw to C.J. Board on Sunday's game. That was a very good throw. He threw one that went out of bounds, but he was basically 1 for 2 on his deep ball attempts. And the Giants offense on Sunday, once again against a terrible Atlanta defense, had a one play of over 20 yards, and that was it, that one play. So it's embarrassing. There's no explosive plays. Once again, the Giants can't sustain and win with this offense with the dinking and the dunking and being perfect. There's too many penalties, too many mistakes on a team like this to have an offense that operates like Jason Garrett's. Something has to change. Whether he gets fired, whether he says to himself, I need to be more aggressive, and finally does it, or whether Freddie Kitchens comes in here and finally does something that we want him to do and goes deep and is more aggressive. That's what we need. So that's all I have. I pretty much, have ranted enough about this topic right now. I would prefer not to see Jason Garrett here anymore. He's an awesome guy, it seems like. I feel bad for... I'm not a person that likes to say guys should be fired, but when you're not living up to... when you're not doing your job correctly, I say the same thing about Gettleman. Gettleman seems like a fine person, but when he's not doing his job correctly, you deserve to be gone. Like, I don't see a reason why Jason Garrett should be here anymore. All the metrics and all the stats have shown the Giants' offense is laughable. It's just awful. And it's not like we're giving him nothing to work with. Daniel Jones was a 6th overall pick. Saquon Barkley a 2nd overall pick. Andrew Thomas was a 4th overall pick. We spent a 1st-round pick this year on Kadarius Toney. We spent God knows how much money on Kenny Golladay. We spent, $40-something million on Sterling Shepard. We took Evan Engram in the 1st round back in the Jerry Reese era, but still a 1st-round talent. We signed Kyle Rudolph for a pretty big contract. It's just like we have guys on this roster that we have spent highly on, but we still can't facilitate at least an average offense. And coming into this year, you guys know this if you've watched me in the preseason, I wasn't asking to be a top 10 offense, although that would have been great, but it's not realistic. I was hoping for an average offensive season. I thought our defense would be better, honestly, but I was hoping for an average offensive season. Now, apparently, this is according to Justin Pennick, the Giants are doing a good job of getting yards and going down the field. They just can't convert in the red zone. The Giants can't get 7 points. That's their biggest issue right now. And I do believe it. The Giants have been better this year as compared to years past, I feel like, in time of possession and getting the ball downfield. But once they get in the red zone, they stall every single time. So whether that's a Daniel Jones problem or a play calling problem, that has to be fixed as well. But there's no more excuses. There's too much money, too many assets tied into this offense. It has to be better than what we're seeing right now. Even Will Hernandez, I forgot about. He was a very high second-round pick in 2018. Nate Solder's making $1 bajillion. I mean, I know he took a pay cut, but still, he was signed to be a very good tackle for this team based on the money we paid him. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Once again, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments, should Jason Garrett be gone? It's not happening this week, of course, but should he be gone eventually? Do you want to see Freddie Kitchens take over? And I'll talk to you guys next time.